Listen closely, because this is not another story of luck or miracle or destiny. This is the echo of something darker, something forged in silence, when no one was watching, when the lights were off and the noise of the world faded into the distance. This is the sound of someone who refused to stop when everything around them told them they should. The sound of footsteps on a path that was never lit, yet somehow you walked it with fire in your eyes. They watched you now, fascinated, replaying every frame of your success, trying to dissect the impossible, trying to find the secret formula behind your rise. They thought they could decode it, that maybe if they looked long enough, they'd see the trick. But what they didn't know was, there was no trick. There was only pain, transformed. There was only the storm you survived, the nights that didn't end, the silence that almost broke you. That's what they were watching. Not perfection, but persistence carved from suffering. You see, they don't understand what it takes to come from nothing and turn that nothing into something unshakable. They don't know what it means to wake up every day with doubt on your shoulder, whispering that you're not enough, and still move anyway. They didn't see how you built from ruins, how every mistake became a lesson written in your bones. When the world said you'd fall apart, you stood still. When they left, you stayed. And when everything you cared about burned to ashes, you learned how to walk through the fire without flinching. Now they watch in awe. They pause the clip, rewind it, slow it down, hoping to catch that moment, the one where you turned everything around. But it wasn't one moment, it was every moment they ignored. Every time you showed up when it didn't matter, every time you failed and didn't post about it, every time you felt invisible but kept going anyway. That's what made the difference. That's the truth they can't replicate. The world is filled with watchers, people who stare at the outcome but never the process. They see the mountaintop, not the climb. They see the victory, not the scars. But you lived through the middle. You didn't skip scenes. You didn't fast forward the pain. You stayed there until it broke you open, until your weakness became your weapon. That's why you stand different now. That's why your silence speaks louder than their noise. You learned early that no one's going to understand your grind. No one's going to applaud you while you're building. The crowd only appears when the lights come on. But you worked in the dark. You trained your spirit when no one was looking. You learned how to stay calm when everything inside you was screaming to quit. And that's why they can't copy you, because what built you wasn't seen. It was felt. It was earned through every heartbreak, every disappointment, every night you had to become your own reason. They say it looks effortless. They say you make it look easy, but they don't know that ease is the last stage of evolution, when struggle turns into rhythm, when chaos becomes control. You didn't skip pain. You mastered it. You turned it into art. Every tear became a blueprint. Every failure became instruction. Every moment of fear became muscle memory. You were built different, not because you were chosen, but because you chose yourself. When no one clapped, when no one believed, when no one saw. You stayed, you worked, you burned quietly until your light became undeniable. And now, they watch it on repeat, because they want to understand how you did that. They don't realize that what they're seeing is not the highlight. It's the aftermath of 1,000 nights you spent fighting a battle they never knew existed. Remember this. People don't admire results. They envy resilience. They stare not because they love your success, but because deep down they see what they could have been if they hadn't stopped, and that realization burns them. They call you lucky, they call you gifted, but you know the truth. It wasn't luck that brought you here. It was obsession. It was discipline. It was refusing to lose yourself. Even when everything tried to pull you under, there was a time you questioned if it would ever make sense, if all the struggle would ever turn into something more than pain. And now that it has, it still doesn't feel real, does it? Because you remember every broken piece of yourself that had to fall before this moment could stand. You remember every time you almost gave in. And now the world watches the victory, but only you remember the cost. They think they understand your hunger, but they never tasted the emptiness you came from. They think they understand your focus, but they never lived with the distractions that tried to destroy you. You built peace out of chaos. You built confidence out of rejection. You built strength out of fear. That's why they can't understand how you did it, because you didn't follow a path. You created one. You didn't just survive the dark. You made it your home until the light found you again. So let them watch. Let them study every move, every word, every detail. Let them wonder what your secret is. Because the truth is, your secret is that there is no secret. Just work. Just pain. Just endless belief when belief itself was fading. That's what greatness looks like before it becomes visible. That's what makes them replay the story again and again, hoping to catch a glimpse of the moment you transcended. But they'll never find it, because it wasn't one moment. It was a lifetime of refusing to break. There's a quiet power that comes from knowing no one believed in you. It hardens your resolve in a way applause never could. When they doubted you, they gave you something greater than support. They gave you silence. And in that silence, you learned how to build without noise, how to grow without permission, how to fight without an audience. That silence became your training ground. While they spoke, you worked. While they questioned, you created. While they slept, you sharpened. They watched the result, but never the repetition. They saw the performance, but not the preparation. Every victory you have now was written 1,000 times before it ever happened. Every move that looks effortless was born from hours of unseen effort, mistakes, corrections, frustration. But that's the part people skip. That's the part they call boring. They think mastery is a gift. You know it's a scar. There were nights when even breathing felt like labor, when the thought of continuing was heavier than the failure itself. But you kept going, not because you weren't afraid, but because you refused to let fear decide for you. That's what separates those who try from those who transform. You didn't wait for inspiration. You moved without it. You didn't wait to feel ready. You built readiness out of action. And now, every time they hit replay, they're not just watching your success. They're watching a living record of everything they gave up on. They're watching the version of themselves that quit too soon. You became a mirror of what could have been, and that reflection stings. Because the truth is, most people want the victory, not the process. They want the crown, not the burden. But you carried the burden until it became your armor. You didn't escape the weight, you adapted to it. You remember when you had no proof that it would work, when every effort felt invisible, when no one cared about your progress, when it seemed like the world had already moved on without you. But those were the hours that built your edge, the ones where you had to believe in something that didn't exist yet. That's what they're seeing now, belief made visible. Faith turned tangible. They rewind the clip and call it unbelievable. But you remember every believable reason to quit, every time it made sense to stop, every time you said one more day, one more step, one more try. That's what they don't see. It wasn't a leap. It was a crawl. A relentless, quiet, unglamorous crawl through doubt and exhaustion. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? the magic of momentum born in stillness. The darker the path, the sharper your vision became. You learned how to see in the dark, how to move when no one was guiding you. You learned that the world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards endurance. And that's why you kept going. Because deep down, you knew something no one else did. Progress doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly until one day, it's undeniable. And that day came for you. Now they study you like a mystery, searching for clues, trying to figure out where it all changed. But you know the truth. It changed the day you stopped waiting for change. The day you stopped asking for signs and became one. The day you stopped hoping for a miracle and started becoming your own. That's when everything began to shift. That's the part they'll never see in the footage. The moment the fire turned inward. And it wasn't a scream. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It was you whispering to yourself in the middle of defeat, saying, "Not yet." That whisper became your anthem. It carried you through every wall, every fall, every wound. That whisper turned into a roar the world could finally hear. But it started as silence, as belief, when belief felt impossible. Now they say you're different. They say you've changed. But they don't realize you didn't change. You became. This is who you were meant to be all along. The pain didn't create you. It revealed you. It stripped away everything false until only the real you remained. And that version, the one that doesn't flinch anymore, doesn't doubt anymore, that's the version they can't figure out. Because it's rare, it's earned, it's untouchable. There's a strange peace that comes after surviving everything meant to destroy you. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You've already done it. Every failure that once haunted you, now stands behind you as fuel. Every rejection became a lesson in redirection. You no longer chase validation because you've seen what happens when you build without it. You've seen how strong you become when applause disappears. And yet, there's still more to do. You're not finished. That's the secret they can't grasp. The hunger doesn't end with success. It deepens. Because once you've risen from nothing, comfort feels like a cage. You crave growth the way others crave rest. You can't unsee the fire once you've walked through it. You can't unlearn the fight. That's why you keep moving, even when you could stop. That's why you keep creating when you could coast. Because this isn't about proving them wrong anymore. It's about honoring the version of you that refused to give up. They think it's motivation that drives you, but it's not. It's memory. Memory of who you were before the breakthrough. Memory of the nights that almost ended you. Memory of the promises you made when no one was listening. That memory keeps you humble, grounded, unstoppable. It reminds you that greatness isn't a destination, it's a discipline. So when they watch it again, when they study your every move, they'll keep searching for the secret ingredient, and they'll miss it every time. Because the secret isn't in the steps, it's in the stamina. It's in the quiet conviction that says, no matter what happens, I'm not done. That's what separates you. That's what makes your story replay worthy. They call it unbelievable. You call it inevitable. Because you didn't come this far by accident. You came this far by design, by every decision you made when it was hardest to keep going. By every choice that felt too small to matter, but mattered more than anything. And now here you are, not a miracle, not a mystery, but a manifestation of persistence so rare, it looks like magic. And they'll keep watching, keep wondering, keep trying to figure out how you did that. But deep down, you'll know. They could too, if only they were willing to go through what you did. It's strange, isn't it? How the same people who once overlooked you now analyze you. How the same voices that called you unrealistic now whisper your name with respect. How the silence that once surrounded you is now filled with applause. But deep inside, you know the applause isn't what changed you. It never was. What changed you was the journey that no one clapped for, the nights that offered no reward, the effort that went unseen and uncelebrated. That's where you found your edge. That's where you learned that greatness isn't born in comfort. It's born in confrontation. The confrontation with yourself. Every victory you have now was built in the days when you felt like nothing was moving. Every lesson you carry came from moments that broke you open. You learn that progress hides itself until it trusts your consistency. You learn that growth doesn't show up in loud announcements. It arrives quietly, one small improvement at a time, until suddenly you look back and realize you've become unrecognizable. They can't understand that transformation isn't a single explosion. It's erosion, slow, painful, and constant. Every failure shaved off a piece of who you used to be until what remained was something solid, something immovable. That's why your success looks unshakable now, because it's built on the ruins of who you were before. They call it talent because they don't want to accept the truth that it's work. They call it natural because it's easier to believe you were born with it than to accept how much you've suffered for it. They tell themselves stories so they don't have to face their own reflection, because your rise reminds them of their own stillness. Your motion exposes their hesitation. Your persistence magnifies their excuses. That's why they're obsessed. That's why they keep watching. But let them watch, let them rewind. Because what they're seeing is not perfection, it's persistence disguised as grace. Every move you make looks easy now because you've bled for it. Every word you say carries weight because it was written in hardship. They don't know that every calm expression hides storms you've already survived. You learned how to be composed in chaos, and that composure looks like confidence to those who never stood in the fire. You remember the fire, don't you? The times when it felt like life was burning everything you built. When you had nothing left to prove, but everything left to lose. When the world turned cold, and the only warmth you had was your own will to continue. Those were the chapters no one wants to talk about. The unseen struggle, the invisible endurance, the endless waiting for something to make sense. But that waiting taught you something priceless. That strength isn't about speed, it's about patience. It's about holding on when nothing's happening. And that's why you're dangerous now, because you learned to find peace in the middle of pressure. You stopped running from the pain and started listening to it. You realized that every ache was a message, every setback a lesson, every obstacle a test. You stopped asking why me and started saying try me. That shift changed everything. That's the moment they missed. That's the transformation no one can rewind to capture. Now they call you unstoppable, but you know the truth. You're not unstoppable. You've just learned how to start again, endlessly. You've mastered the art of beginning after every ending. You've made peace with repetition, with failure, with struggle. You've stopped romanticizing the finish line and started falling in love with the process. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Not the absence of failure, but your refusal to be defined by it. People fear the dark, but you learn to build in it. You discovered that the dark isn't your enemy, it's your forge. It's where you become sharper, quieter, stronger. It's where distraction dies and purpose is born. And that's why when the light finally came, you didn't flinch. You were ready. You'd already met your demons and made peace with them. You'd already walked through the shadows and found your reflection intact. You don't fear being alone anymore because you've met the part of yourself that never leaves. That's what they see when they watch you now, a person who has already faced their own breaking point, and built a home there. That calm they admire isn't natural, it's earned. It's the stillness of someone who has already survived the storm. It's the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to convince anyone anymore. You're not trying to prove them wrong, you're simply proving yourself right. They ask, how do you stay so focused? How do you keep going? And the answer is simple, because you remember what it felt like to have nothing. You remember when your dreams were just whispers in a room that no one else believed in. You remember when your potential was invisible, when your effort was unnoticed. You never want to go back there. That memory keeps you moving, keeps you hungry, keeps you grateful. The truth is, success didn't change you, it revealed you. It peeled away the layers of doubt, fear, and insecurity that once held you back. It didn't make you new, it made you true. You learned that real strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout to be heard. Real strength is quiet, consistent, patient. It shows up again and again, long after motivation disappears. You see, most people give up because they mistake struggle for failure, but you learn that struggle is the proof of progress. It means you're still in the fight. You learned how to dance with discomfort, how to turn resistance into rhythm. That's what makes your story so different. Because while others were chasing comfort, you were chasing challenge. While they avoided pain, you used it. Now, your name carries weight, not because it's famous, but because it's forged. Every letter of it has a history. Every success has a scar beneath it. Every victory has a wound that healed slow. You didn't just build results, you built resilience. And resilience is what they can't imitate. They can study your moves, copy your habits, mimic your routine, but they can't replicate your spirit. Because your spirit was built in the parts of the story they'll never see. And that's the irony. They think you found something outside yourself. But everything you needed was already within. You just had to dig deep enough to uncover it. Every doubt, every rejection, every failure. They were never trying to destroy you. They were shaping you into the person who could handle what you asked for. Now you stand where once you dreamed to be, not as a miracle, but as a testament. Proof that faith and effort, when fused with time, can turn the impossible into reality. You became the evidence that consistency is stronger than talent, that discipline is louder than motivation, that patience beats perfection. And that's why they can't stop watching. Because deep down, they recognize something familiar in you, a reflection of their own untapped potential. They see what happens when someone finally decides to stop doubting and start doing. And that's what shakes them. That's what inspires them, even if they'll never admit it. And now, here you are, standing in the same world that once told you to stay quiet, to blend in, to give up. Standing in the same silence that used to haunt you, but this time, it's not empty. This time, the silence listens, because you've become the sound that breaks it. You've become the story they whisper about, the example they point to, the proof that the impossible is only a word until someone like you decides to challenge it. They still watch it on repeat. Every clip, every replay, every frame, trying to decode the moment you changed everything.